What's going on? Today we're talking about where to start with cold outbound, a data-driven cold outbound program. And this is kind of a lot harder than you would think. I only have 14 slides here, so this is going to go really, really quick. But the key here is that what a lot of founders do is they just sick a bunch of salespeople and they say, figure it out, and they haven't downloaded their context. And a good portion of that context is understanding the insight about what drives someone to buy. Now, there's kind of two components to this. There's not only what drives someone to buy, but it's also what data can you get at scale to be able to identify what drives people to buy. And you might understand the insight, but really this kind of what's the realm of the possible. This is the area that people don't really have a good grasp on. And so what they do is they send sales folks out in the world and they say, just manually look up companies. Every time they raise some money, go figure it out. That's not the way to do it. We've come to a place where we have amazing data. My good friend Akbar, who I'll tag in this video, works at Harmonic. They've got great data. Olivia from SignalFire, she's got amazing data. If you're considering taking data from SignalFire, do that. Keith at Primer has great data. Kyle at Brickstack, great data. There's all this really, really great data in the world. And the key here is how do you take the insight about why a customer is ready to buy and tie that with data that might means that you know that they are kind of in this moment. So let me dive into some useful tools here to be able to extract that knowledge, usually from the founder's head, to provide this data to the sales team. And even if you don't do this at scale, this is going to be so helpful for your first sales hire. So let's dive in. All right, where to begin? You always start with coffee. That's the place to begin. Let's start where not to start, right? This is where everyone starts today, and here's why I think it's just a bad idea to start here. Hire a sales rep. They'll figure it out. That's your job. You're a sales rep. I'm paying you. You figure it out. That's a really hard and kind of obnoxious bar to set for the SDR because you as a founder haven't done a really, really great job at translating your knowledge. You'd be surprised how long have you spent chatting with customers, knowing your first ones, being on late night calls, troubleshooting issues, right? You understand your customer and you've probably done a piss poor job about translating that knowledge. Send an email to all VPs of products at companies with 50 to 1,000 employees. Hi, my name's Jerry. I can help you sell something. Kyle said to me the other day, we chat all the time, and he said founders will take emails that are working for them and then give that to an early stage sales rep and say, go figure it out. Well, you automatically lose points because it's not coming from a founder. People who just removed Tech A. So I was chatting with a friend of mine, and they were saying, we're just going after people that just add a new analytics product. Well, at that point, it's a little bit too late. Contact all fellow YC companies. I'm a YC company, you're a YC company, trust me. That doesn't make any sense. It has nothing to do with the pain or the problem that you solve, right? These are just people that might be a little bit more likely to buy, and that doesn't make any sense. And everyone's already done it. So now it's saturated. Add more personalization. Talk about the school they went to or the socks that they wear. That's silly. That has nothing to do with the value that you can provide. Send more emails and more reps and just add more. Try different channels. Just try different shit. Don't do any of this stuff. I've got a better way. Also, Chad doesn't know. I just searched for Chad sales. This what came up. I searched for Jordan sales because I thought maybe I have a sales name. Michael Jordan came up and his badass shoes. So, but Chad sales, these are Chad sales people. And there's actually Chad the Country here and I guess some hair growth product. But the founder has this contact, not Chad from sales. Chad from sales is not incentivized to know this information. He's been given a really impossible task. Chad, go sell. And it's like, sell what? I don't know, our product. To whom? Like VPs of engineering. That doesn't actually help anyone out. And the conversations that your sales team has had with your prospects aren't about extracting these insights because their whole goal is to get them over the line, not to understand who they are. Good sales folks will do this, but it's really high bar, and to be able to abstract that value, really hard to do. What you really need to do is understand the job to be done here. This is a Clayton Christensen framework. And really, why are they hiring you? It comes from a very famous case study about milkshakes at McDonald's, and people are hiring milkshakes to do a bunch of different things. Two things, in fact. The first was to entertain them on their drive into work. And you could think about all the different levers that you could pull to entertain someone on the drive to work. A swirly straw, make a funny noise, maybe insulate their hand, or allow them to, fit in their cup holders, right? You would think about that, not improve the quality of the ingredients, right? That is not something that you might do to make their ride more enjoyable. Also, as a fun treat for their kids, that's a totally different thing that you would do to your milkshake. So, so this is what you really need to think about here: is what is the job to be done that your customers are hiring you for? And I've stolen some of his framework here and changed a little bit, but really, this is the kind of spreadsheet that you need to figure out, and you need to validate your intuition to help you find the insight. It's the insight. And an insight is a combination of observations. So start with your existing customers. That's the fast way to do it. Get the domain, get the person or the title that bought. What were they doing before you bought us? What was your kind of day-to-day? And that's the quantification of the pain, right? We were spending X amount of time or X amount of hours, or we weren't doing anything, and we were sitting on this huge gold mine. What did you hire my product to do? Why are you hiring me? Are you hiring, and you'll get crazy answers here. Well, it's because my boss thought we needed an analytics tool. It's like, okay, and that might be something you pivot against, but this is important. Why'd you hire me? And then activation, you really want to know this change in the world, right? What led you to wanting to solve this problem now? Well, we just launched 5 new products. This just changed. That activation is really important. Oh, I just got a new boss, right? That might be it. What's the customer ACV? This is really important to be able to quantify your market, to go after how expensive of a deal could this be. Do you want to chase $10,000 or $400,000, and how do you know? So this might be so like, how do you price? Basically, websites, users. It could be there's just a handful of different things here, but sometimes you can get at a proxy of that in the market without actually knowing the business, like number of engineers. So you can make some assumption that the number of engineers are going to file X tickets, etc. Then you want to go forward. So we've taken the problem and we've reversed it from the customers, from really chatting with customers, and that's always the bedrock that you start with. But now you have intuitions about some customers maybe that you couldn't reach, or that you chatted with, or deals you've lost. And I want you to take those intuitions and move forward with them. So what is the problem that you solve? Write down all those problems. Who is the problem for? What are their titles, right? How painful is this? Is this a really big pain, or is it like, it's kind of nice to have? Describe the problem. Well, they were hiring a bunch of engineers and they didn't know who is the best engineer. So that's the thing, is that they wanted to compensate the best engineer, or find that engineer so that that engineer could train other engineers. Suddenly you're getting closer to an insight. What are important buying moments? Well, we were hiring more than 10 engineers, so we couldn't really figure out how to evaluate them when they joined. Oh, well, they just crossed $5 million. And it turns out that after you cross $5 million, that's when the HIPAA requirement kicks in, right? Things like that, I just made that up. But so this is important, which you probably don't know today, but you kind of have 4 buckets of data to target. Don't worry about the scale. Don't worry about how you're going to get this information. It's totally achievable today. You want to think about your 4 buckets. You care about deltas mostly, but that's employees. You have information about where they worked in the past, who they worked with. This is crazy. Signalfire can get this data. So it's like, are you a VP of product? Did you work with this other person at Uber? And is that person now at a target account of yours? That's the type of thinking that you can deploy. Did someone just get hired? What is the job description of that person that got hired, right? All this data around employees. How long have they been there? What's their title? Again, change though. So did they just get promoted? How many promotions have they had? How long did they start there? You've got company data. Where's their office? Are they located in the United States or not? Do they have company events? Did they raise? What's changed? What was their founding date? So these are kind of company pieces of information. Is their description? Have they pivoted? You've got website data. So tools like BuiltWith are really good for this. But what kind of tech is on their website? What are they adding or removing? What are keywords in their website copy? What are values? This is a great one, values. So on their careers page, what do they say about themselves? We believe in people, right? That is important, because anytime you can quantify a company's identity, and one way to do this in websites, for example, what I'm doing with one of my clients is we're identifying all the product-led growth companies. So the companies that are B2B companies that have a free tier section, so you don't have to contact sales. These are product-led growth companies that want to get you in and then upsell you inside the product without ever having to chat with a salesperson. And then external sites, what's happening on G2 Crowd or Glassdoor, or their brand mentions. So the idea here is you can take any one piece of this data and have an observation. I saw you just raise money. I like money. I want your money. Please give me your money because you've raised money. That's an observation. There's no insight there. That's saying, I noticed something about you. What you're trying to do is get to painful and profitable insights. So what makes a customer in a lot of pain, and which customers can you make the most money from, which is also kind of another way to quantify that pain. So insight is, this is for Main Street, customers that were founded recently, which means that they qualify for more. Main Street provides credits for startups, free credits from the government. So if they were founded recently, that means they have more years to take action on that credit. Depending on their count of folks in engineering, product, and design, that means that the credit can expand. If you have more people in engineering, product, and design, that means you're eligible for more money. And these folks have the most to gain, and we can actually quantify the dollar amount that we can provide these companies. All right, insight. Customers that are already mitigating the risk are the best people to insure, as their premiums will be low. So this is a good one, right? The people that you really want to insure are the folks that are already doing things to mitigate the risk. You don't want to insure the Leaning Tower of San Francisco because they did nothing to mitigate the risk of that building. I don't know that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that that would be an example, a totally fictional example that's not really happening in a building here. But that's the type of insight here, is that the people that you want to insure are those that are already mitigating their risk. Insight. So a newly transitioning product-led growth company, a company that wasn't product-led growth to a company that is now changing to be a product-led growth company, without analytics stack, can't find the best ways to grow. They're not going to know which levers to pull to get folks from the free plan to a paid plan. So paid plan. Companies who are about to raise their A and are hiring sales aggressively are trying to find the fastest ways to grow. These are people I should go after, right? These are the folks that are about to raise a bunch of money, really care about their next valuation, and they're hiring a lot of sales folks because that's what they've been told is kind of the way to go. These are all insights. The way to think about this is a symptom versus a diagnosis. And if you go to a doctor and say, I have lower back pain, they're like, okay, tell me more. And they're like, oh, I've got muscle aches. And you're like, okay, tell me more. It's like, I got neck pain. It's like, okay. Or you have any problems sleeping? I am having problems sleeping. You probably have Lyme disease. So that's the difference between just taking an observation and telling someone about an observation and diagnosing them. So what we're really trying to get to is, how can you diagnose a company? And that's the lens with which you should think about this. I found the best way to do this is to kind of start with some of the copy and reverse into it. This is using Robert Cialdini's influence framework. But really it starts with this R13 qualification, which these are different ways to think about how you can get to an insight. So I'll walk through that in just a second here. But really, what's changed that makes them need you now? What's that change? And you can use the R13 framework to think about that. And then you want to lead with that to talk about that change. And then commitment and consistency. So people tend to do things that they've done in the past or that are consistent with who they are. So what actions are they already taking that make them aligned? So R1 is requirements in my framework here, and that's identity. So if you're talking to a product-led growth company or a company that recently has changed to be a product-led growth company, you can say you probably really, really care about your users. Or if you're chatting with folks that have a culture section or a people section on their website, you can say, it seems like you really, really care about the people at your organization, right? What is their identity that you can go after them? Authority. So who are you relative to their pain? We are the number one best, absolutely greatest company that has done this. We've worked with companies like Stripe, Google, I can't think of what they're called, Apple, and then social proof. Ideally, you want a customer that's in the same pain as them. So if you can talk about a VP of engineering at Salesforce and you're selling to HubSpot, that's a great case study. Anytime that social proof can align with their identity, that is a really good thing. Reciprocation. So generally, if you give to people, they want to give back. So what kind of knowledge or thing can you provide for free to the customer, even if they don't close, that will be interesting to them. I was having a really great conversation with a company called Rudder. They do e-commerce integration so that you don't have to. So if you're a e-commerce chatbot for Shopify, and you want to launch on Magento, you can integrate with them once and launch on a bunch of different platforms. So the reciprocation they may provide is, hey, Jordan, I don't know if you know this, but Magento just totally changed their API. It took us 8 hours to fix. We've wrote a blog post about how to fix that. We're happy to chat with your engineers about how they can do it themselves. And in that case, you're being helpful. Now, the subtext here is that, look, just forget that thing, use me. But at the very least, I'm going to help you get there so you can solve that pain tomorrow. And generally, if you do someone a favor, they're going to want to do a favor back. Scarcity, ideally, you want to provide a deadline, right? Why act now? What can you provide now? And then liking, it's important. This is, I think, a Rodney Dangerfield joke here. My boss told me I need to set up the company's 401k, but I just don't think I can run that far. My good friend Tarek gave me a good one about Carol Baskin that seemed to convert really well. So just add a little bit of levity. Be a person here. Thanks, Tarek, for that great email. So this is the first R of the 13R framework. It's requirements, right? Who can you help, and define who you can reasonably help. Now, of course, there are these like companies between blah, 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 US only, and ideally, you want to have an identity lens here, which is like what makes them broadly likely to have that problem. You're a product-led growth company. You care about culture. You have an employee churn rate of this. And ideally, you'll have some way to score the payment here. So is that number of sales reps because you charge per sales rep? Is it website traffic? Is it the number of tools they use? Those are the kinds of things that people like charge for. So that generally is a good way to also get some understanding of the quantity of pain that they're in. Generally, those things are connected. So once you kind of have that ring around the market, then you want to quantify the pain with the R13 framework. So what you're trying to get to is you're trying to get to insights. So R13 is a way to tease out data here, and really you can combine things to get to an insight. So let's kind of like quickly walk through this, and I think we just got one more slide after this, so hang with me. Oh boy, we've gone on for 17 minutes. So ratios, what's a ratio that's out of whack? All right, you have one support person, but 100 people at your company, or you have 100,000 website visitors, or you have one support person and 40,000 support articles, right? That's a ratio that's out of whack that you can talk about. That's leading on the way to an insight. That's just an observation, but you're leading on the way to an insight. Rates, I noticed that you were growing 10% month over month, but now you're hiring 50 people. Wow, what a huge delta. Things have changed for you. Rank, I looked at everyone that's a B2B company, and did you know that you've added the most number of people in the last 30 days? Congratulations, right? You've had you are the best. Raises. A lot of people do this really terribly. Oh, you just raised money? What you want to do is say, hey, Jordan, I see that you raised money 9 months ago, and I know that's generally when people are looking to raise an A. I also noticed that you are hiring a sales person. And then I took a look at your traffic, and your traffic has basically been flat. So it seems like you may need to really hire soon, right? That's an insight. That is a diagnosis, and that's what you want to get to. Risk, are they doing something dangerous, right? We talked about the HIPAA case. You are leaking HIPAA data. Let me show you. Let me prove to you that that's the case. And then that's an observation. Let's get to an insight. What's the insight? We're going to look at that in a second. So I'll show you how you can take that observation and turn it into an insight. Relations, trust is really important, but people do this really bad. I see that you're a VC company. I'm a VC company. It's better to say, I'm a founder in OnDeck 7. You're a founder in OnDeck 7. Would love to chat. That's a relation play. And that's a community. OnDeck is a pretty tight community. And OnDeck 7 was an even tighter community. So that's like a really good, trusted community. And you can even do things like with SignalFire's data, you can say, look at all the people in my company, look at my target accounts, and then find anyone that worked in the same department at my company as one of my target accounts, and then send that person internally an email and be like, hey, do you happen to know Jordan? It looks like you worked with him at Uber for 3 years in the product team. That's a trust. riches. Can you just calculate how much money you can make them? So based on your 40,000 traffics, based on your 40,000 a month traffic hits, generally 5% of those are bots. And did you know that you can save $8 per hit per month with this bot detection software, right? That's riches. You can quantify how much money. References, you want to talk about customers. So like you can talk about competitors. Did you know Coke did this? Hey, Pepsi, did you know Coke did this, right? Ideally, you want to find someone in that same pain and use that as a reference. Are there facts that you can reveal that they didn't know? Did you know 10% of the people that left your company went to your direct competitor? Boy, wouldn't it be better to save those people? You got to thread the needle carefully on that one. Resources, are there things you can provide for free, right? This gets the reciprocation. I don't have reciprocation here, but what can you provide the customer for free? Or is there some insight that you can share? And then what's changed for them really recently that might make them, you've got a new CTO, the raising thing is not as interesting, but your traffic has changed, right? What circumstances have changed? Might make them right for you. So let me give you an idea of an insight, not an observation, an insight. So an insight is a sum of observations usually. Saw that you're using fluffy data and that you mentioned you're a HIPAA compliant company, right? So two pieces of information, right? Fluffy data is leaking HIPAA, I know that. And a HIPAA compliant company, I know that from extracting insights about their website, right? Plus, given you have 3 lawyers on your team, right? That means you care, right? You're a litigious company, maybe. I don't know if that's litigious or not, but you probably deeply care about HIPAA compliance. I wanted to let you know that fluffy data violates HIPAA standards by leaking IP data. And based on your, here it comes. And based on your 50,000 visitors a month, you're likely at risk of 4.5 million HIPAA fines or about 123% of your total funding. So I made everything, like literally everything in this is made up, but you can see how I can use different points of data to really get to the insight. And also, and there's multiple of the 13 R framework going on here, but I can actually talk about the risk you are at. One, help solving this. That's the goal. This is what you're trying to get to. You're trying to get to insights. And every day of the week, if you can get to an insight, not an observation, an insight, that's what's going to convert. The only other challenge you have to face here is what insights are frequent enough that you can hit your volume targets. So it doesn't actually matter if you look at all 100,000 companies and 6 ever hire a VP of data that are, product-led growth companies, etc. So what you're trying to figure out in running this data is what are the conditions for an insight and what is the frequency for the sum of those conditions. You want to find the top corner right here. So, and you just got to kind of tease the data a little bit, test different things, and you got to dig for gold in a couple of these areas. So think about the data that we've talked about today. Think about what insights that you can provide, but really start with your customers. So follow this presentation in the order in which it was sent, and you too can send cold outbound email at scale programmatically that gets 10 to 30% reply rates if you follow this framework. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. Thank you for spending like 20 minutes of your day with me. That's so much time, and I'm so grateful for you. And you should congratulate yourself for learning a little bit more about how to build your own cold email system.